Tuesday's municipal elections ended with some big victories for, well, it depends on who you ask. The state GOP sent out a press release titled Tuesday, Tough Times for Democrats. The Democrats sent out a release in response titled Republicans Spin Themselves, and pointing to big wins across the state. Here now to cut through the spin is political analyst Matt Hennessy. Matt, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
So, you are a Democrat, but
yes.
You have some perspective, some neutral perspective on the races from Tuesday.
Yeah, Lori, I think that regardless of what the various parties put out, there was a theme, and the theme was if you were an incumbent or if you were the party of an incumbent, you had a tough day on Tuesday. And a lot of folks say, well, you know, our side won, or the Republicans are claiming that they won. But if you take a look at the numbers carefully, you see a whole bunch of different things going on, and a lot of them are connected to local issues. But you take a look at the race in New Haven. Mayor DeStefano just got reelected to a historic 10th term, and he faced basically an unknown opponent in the general election. But he only won with 55% of the vote against somebody who only spent a few $1,000s versus his $700,000. You look at races such as Waterbury, where the incumbent Mike Jajura, a longtime incumbent elected in 2001, switched parties to try and keep his seat, and he lost there too. Even if you look at a city like Hartford, where the incumbent mayor was running for his first elected term, Mayor Segarra was actually endorsed by both the Democrats and the Republicans, but he received less votes running as mayor than he did for city council. So there's a theme out there that if you're the incumbent, and there were incumbents who won, no question about that, but when you dug into the numbers, you saw voter frustration about the economy, voter frustration about what's going on in their own personal economic lives, and of course the CLMP issue is out there too.
Right. So I was going to say, so do you think that that was a result because people are just unhappy with the way things are, and whatever the way things are for them might be that the Republicans are in power or the Democrats are in power?
Right. I think you saw that theme. Now, of course, there's a few examples that, you know, contradict that. You look at Mayor Bowden out in Danbury. He won a very solid victory as a Republican in a city, which has been consistently Republican, but he's setting himself up for the governor's race a few years from now. But I think if you look across, whether you're looking at New London or Harwinton, you see whoever the incumbent was or incumbent party ran into a buzzsaw of frustrated voters.
So some people use the word upset in describing some of the victories. I mean, were there any upsets in your eyes? Or?
No, well, you know, I don't think there were any real upsets in these races. There were a few open seats. You know, there was a conversation about the Middletown race being an upset. Yes, that was an upset. The incumbent, however, almost lost the time before. So that Drew wound up winning and defeating the incumbent Republican mayor, but it wasn't by a huge margin.
Right.
So when you take a look, even if you look in Waterbury, that is at the end of the day a Democratic city, and the fact that the police chief won is not really a big surprise considering their own internal politics there. So there were some people claim there were upsets, but if you look and dug deep down, he said this is really not that inconsistent with the way these towns operate anyway.
The governor was pretty involved with a few races, and some people approached me and made a big deal of that. Was that big of a deal?
Well, I think that it's possible in races such as the Middletown race, where you had Drew, who wasn't as well known, having some support from the governor obviously was very helpful. But once again, taking a look at the local issues going on, when you go to Waterbury, for instance, the party there felt that they had a deal that Mike Jajura wasn't going to run again. And so that was a big internal issue in Waterbury. That was more important than the endorsement of any outside individual.
What does it say about Connecticut that the divide does exist, at least on the municipal level, so solidly?
Well, look, in a lot of these races, it boils down to the local issues. And it's hard to find a Republican or Democratic way to effectively run your police department, deliver road services. In most Connecticut towns, it's really about who's going to do the best job at the lowest cost. And Democrats and Republicans have a pretty good fight over that. However, trying to read a state movement into the election results from Tuesday is a bit difficult. People have a lot of fun doing it. It really isn't there.
You mentioned mentioned the CLMP frustration. Do you think it was too soon to have an impact on these elections? Or because, you know, I mean, people do initially when there's a crisis, I mean, it's a local. I mean, what's that saying? You know, a crisis starts local and ends local.
Well, I think there is some evidence in a few of these races that the CLMP issue snuck into them. In Harwinton, the incumbent selectman, there was a whisper campaign that he had his power on. Why didn't the rest of the town? In Middletown, the fact that CLMP president gave money to the incumbent Republican mayor, that became an issue. But you also saw elected officials like Mayor Slifka in West Hartford, Mary Glassman in Simsbury, who got out in front of the issue, and really, even before the governor became really disappointed with CLMP, they were up front saying, this has got to end, this has got to stop. So they're very smart. It was the right thing to do from their constituents' view, but it was also very smart politically to position yourself as being against CLMP in towns that were very, very hard hit. Right.
We only have about 30 seconds, but I did want to ask you what your thoughts are on the Senate race. You know, I mean, people are sending out flyers, making phone calls, but the fight hasn't begun.
Right. I think if you talk to folks in Washington, especially on the Republican side, they are just happy that Linda McMahon's back is going to be spending millions and millions of dollars, because that means the Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee can spend its money elsewhere. They don't think that Chris Shays, though they like him a lot, has a shot. And they're happy to let a self-funder spend that kind of money. On the Democratic side, you know, I think Chris Murphy has been doing a great job of getting the endorsements and rolling along a great machine, raising the money. You still can't count Susan Bysowitz out. And, you know, Representative Tong is still in there fighting away, too. So it's still there's still a lot more to play on the Democratic side.
A lot more to play, and it's going to be very interesting yet again. Another interesting election here in Connecticut. Thanks, Matt. We're going to have you back to talk more about it.
Sounds good.
Coming up after the break, just before the storm, all eyes were on the Capitol and how lawmakers can help Connecticut become job-friendly.